Welcome to Free Range Flock. We were once the latchkey kids who came home to an empty house after school. We were feral, resilient, cynical, and innovative. Older than Google. Our teenage faces were never posted on social media. The internet was just an idea in our youth. Now we are older, wiser, and thriving. Our independent ways will continue to serve us. We plan to keep defying the odds, and we will carve our own path with grace, with humor, with joy, our way. We've been through some stuff. We will continue to keep pushing, and we are not going anywhere. The former latchkey kids are now the free range flock.
So, Sara, what do you love about your job?
Oh, goodness. I am lucky to work for a nonprofit corporation. And so one of the things that I love about my job is the fact that they are, we have a mission that is about social impact, about making a real change in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's super important to me. I mean, values is always something that is core to whatever I do in my life.
Right.
And also the people.
Right.
Like, there are some really, really great people
right.
in my job, and they're what make me keep coming in the office every day.
Aw. So, I work in academia, and I'm in the middle of a transition here. But what I love about academia is the honor that you get to be in the classroom with students who will be vulnerable, and I teach public speaking, so they come in very shy and nervous, and then they leave with the ability to kind of be able to stand up and speak for 7 to 8 minutes and use their voice. And I call it, I talk about finding their voice. Being part of that experience is what I love about my job. Mm-hmm. Being in the classroom is my favorite thing. I also love learning new things. So when we're interviewing new people to work, I'm always thinking, what can that person teach me? Because, I feel like a shark has to keep moving. For me, as an educator, I've got to keep learning, because if I don't, then I become stagnant. So I love learning new things.
Oh, I do too. I think that's one of the things I do like about my job as well, is because I do have the opportunity to learn new skills. I'm a graphic designer, for those of you who don't know. And so software programs are always changing. Right. The styles are always changing. So it's a constant reinvention, which is fun.
So a lot of our episodes come about because it's conversations that Sara and I have already been having with either between ourselves or people in our age group, and we find it to be very timely. One of the things about Gen X is now that we're all in our 50s and 60s, many of us are very settled in our jobs and our careers. And many of us are not thinking about taking a leap to something new. We're just thinking, okay, I got to do this for the next 12, 15, whatever that number is for you till I retire. One of the things I like about being I'm going to say older, but that just feels weird to say out loud, but being an older person at work is that when something comes up, I like the fact that people seek me out and go, Amy's going to know what to do. Mm-hmm. Or Amy's she doesn't have the answer, but she'll know who to talk to. I like that feeling that people see me as a trusted source of information. But sometimes some things happen and we have to change jobs. Life happens and we have to make that jump. So, our parents, those boomer parents, they got into a job and their goal was to stay in it for a long period of time. And then you left and you got your little, your clock or whatever you got, and then your retirement, and you left. But a lot of us didn't get that experience. We've had to change jobs a couple of times, and changing jobs is hard. Even if you're going to something great, it is hard. So here I am about, almost my last decade of working, and this jump feels like I'm almost jumping over the Grand Canyon. It's not like it's a little hop that I had in my 20s. Like, I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to do that here. It feels bigger because so many factors. And that's what we want to talk about today is, talking about how to change jobs midlife. So when you reach your 50s, one of the benefits of being this age is knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. So lovely. Mm-hmm. You've been through some things, you experienced some bad times, and then you realize you can survive them. You come out the other end feeling a bit more confident about your abilities. But sometimes the workplace or industry changes and you have to consider moving into a new job, or your job becomes too stressful and you wonder if you have the ability to keep doing this until you retire. So Sara and I represent two very different stories. We know that there are more out there that exist besides our two, but we thought we would kind of share briefly what our two stories are right now being in our careers midlife, and then talk a bit about what we're thinking about when it comes to possible changes or if to change. Mm-hmm. So Sara, you want to start us off about what's going on with your job?
So I think one of the things that is happening, and it's not just in my organization, but I think it's across all kinds of different organizations, academia, nonprofit, corporate, small business. I think it's happening everywhere, is resourcing. Yeah. So it's become a real problem. Like there are labor shortages in so many different industries right now. And back during the pandemic, so many companies reduced workforces, including the company I work for. And even though now business is it's getting better, and depending on your industry, those levels of those labor levels haven't come back to quote unquote normal levels. And so the people who are left within these organizations are now having to wear multiple hats and carry the load of what used to be multiple people's jobs.
Right.
So I think that right now is the pain I'm feeling in my job. And I know a lot of people are struggling with that. I mean, I don't think that my story is in any way unique. It's just my own struggle at the moment. And so I'm really feeling this difficulty because I love my job. I love my company. But it's absolutely breaking me right at the moment because and it's nobody's fault. It's just we can't get people into the doors who can do the jobs fast enough. Right. And the companies, because of the economy, are afraid of overinvesting in staffing. Right. So it's that balance of how do we continue to produce as an organization, no matter what your industry is, but not kill your staff. Right. So and I think that I'm just caught up in the middle of what everyone else is going through right now.
Right. So I think ours is similar in that fact, in that I'm in academia, and higher ed especially is going through an identity crisis right now, and on many, many fronts. Many of us are having budget crisis because not as many students are enrolling. Right now it's 2023, and we're just starting to see the numbers that we'd had before the pandemic. So we went through several years of just a lot of low enrollment. And so with that budget crisis, whenever an organization, like your family, you have less money coming in, you got to sit down and go, okay, what can we do less of? Organizations have to do it too, and we're doing that. And sometimes you have to cut things that you love, and it's not because you don't value it. It's just that there's just not enough money to go around the table. And we're also not enough staff. We're trying to do too much, and I was in this place where I was literally crying every day. You and I were talking about, I just can't get it all done, and it's so stressful. And, if you're a teacher, you know that you do the work and you go home and then you can keep doing the work. Right. And I was working 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, grading, prepping, answering emails, and then the weekends. And so I literally felt like not only did I have the candle burning at both ends, the whole dang thing was on fire. And it just wasn't sustainable. And I actually, because of this, got into therapy and had to start talking it out. And one of the things that my therapist told me very early on in the session was, you probably need to change jobs. And that scared me because I am 54 and I have a retirement plan, and I've been investing in that retirement plan. And for me, I wanted to get to that number of 30 years in the system. So I had a really nice pension on the other end. But I didn't think I could make it. I did not think I could make it. And then lo and behold, I keep my LinkedIn page pretty up to date, and someone who knew me saw that I was, open to new experiences, as I've said, open to work on LinkedIn. And they reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in ever working for us? And I thought, for the right position and the right money, yes, I would make the leap. And sure enough, it was the right position and the right money. And so I'm actually leaving academia after a long time. Oh my gosh, so long. I've been teaching in higher ed for over 28 years. And so I've been doing it for a long time.
But this is the right move.
This is the right move. Yes, it is the right move. And I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, if I didn't accept this job, I have at least 5 friends who would come and beat my butt for not doing it. So yeah, and
Yes.
and I know that several other people that I'm close to in higher ed are also putting the feelers out there and leaving, just self-preservation. But leaving a job in your 50s is a whole different ballgame.
It is.
Because I literally had to call the retirement office and go, okay, if I left now, what happens to my pension? And I had to have those conversations. And then I actually sat down with the financial advisor. I'm like, could I do this? Could I logically do this? And that person had to come back to me and said, yes, you can do this. We can make this work. I need that kind of assurance to feel good about my move, because I have a mortgage and I have a kid that I want him to go to college if he wants that as part of his destiny. I got to make sure those things happen. So it's not just 20-year-old me going from here to here. It's a whole different thing. But I do feel really good on this side of it. It's I'm excited. I'm going to be working remotely and setting my own calendar, which I'm literally trying. I'm so used to having a leash on me. I'm so used to my time between 8 and 5 being owned by someone. And so when I've been doing some hours for them, I literally, the first day, I wrote to my boss and said, just so you know, I'm working these hours and I'm going to do this. And she's like, you don't have to tell me when you're working. Just get the work done. And I was like, I don't know how to operate without a leash on. I said, I will learn. Don't worry, I will learn. But it's a whole new ballgame for me. But I am one of those few people in their 50s who are actually changing jobs. So that is an option for some of us in that situation.
It's a scary proposition. I mean, to your point earlier when you were talking about, you feel like you've got that knowledge and you're settled. You've only got another 10 or 15 years left, and that's a very scary proposition to change. Add on top of that, the whole ageism, that I think when you start getting into your mid and late 50s, no one wants to take the chance to hire you.
Right.
Because they're they can hire somebody out of college for a lot less money.
Yeah. Yes.
So I've seen friends go through that where, they've gotten to their, 57, 58 years old, and suddenly they've lost their job because they're hiring 2 people from overseas to do their job, for half the price.
Right.
And it feels terrible because then it invalidates you. Right. And the knowledge and skills that you've gained over all of the years. But it does make that leap of trying to change jobs very scary because it's why would you hire me at 57?
Well, one of the other aspects too, we're in this little tough place, the rock and the hard place, is I did apply for another job at another university, and similar to what I do, just thinking, okay, let me change environments, and they actually were paying better, so I'm like, oh, that would be good. I can get more pay. And I told my boss, because I'm pretty honest, I can't apply so I don't want to surprise you. And my boss's reaction was, they're not going to hire you because you have too much experience. And I'm like, wait a minute. Do you remember in our 20s when we didn't have enough experience? Now I've reached the other end where now I have too much experience. And she's like, Amy, you have 28 years teaching experience. They're going to look at this and go, oh, she's not going to be here for a minute. She's just going to come get a couple years and retire. And that company never called me. That university never called me. And she's probably right. And that made my brain almost melt down when I was just thinking, I now have too much experience. So, yeah, like, gosh, talk about a sticky place for us to be in our 50s.
It's really hard, and especially when you're working at the individual contributor level, as a teacher, I feel like that level of work within an organization, it's really hard to change jobs at this age, because they expect you to be in management, or they expect you to be a director. And so when you're not, it makes it even harder, because then why would they hire you? Because they have to pay you a lot more when they could hire someone straight out of college. It's hard. It's a very difficult place to be.
And when I took this job at the university, I had already left I was a manager. I was kind of middle management. And I said, one of the things I don't want to do is supervise people. I said, I will lead projects to, the end of time, but I don't want to supervise people, because then my job became something I didn't like, because then I was writing reviews and doing this budget stuff, and I'm like, I want to focus my time on what I love. But what that did was it locked me into this track that literally it has nowhere to go.
Right.
And so, I realized no one's going to say, well, Amy needs some more money for what she's doing. Let's just give her some more money. No, they're going to go, if you're not trying to climb and become another manager and someone else's manager and someone else's manager, you're not going to get more money or promoted. You're just kind of landlocked.
Yes.
And yeah, that was a weird place to be too. And I'm like, but I'm really good at what I do. And whenever you give to me, I'm going to knock it out of the park. And I'm going to, all these projects you're giving me, I'm going to make sure they're great. No, I'm just kind of working in my little circle, and here's your paycheck and go home. So yeah, I am glad that I made the leap. And just after talking to the financial advisor, like, yeah, you're going to be okay. That gave me a lot of clarity. I needed that, but it is hard to make that big change.
Yeah.
So you're kind of at the end of the experience spectrum. We've got all these years of experience. And even if you're not looking for a new job, how are you keeping your skill set up to date and learning new things? Like, what are you doing?
That's a great question. So I think I said this earlier. I am a graphic designer. Part of what I do is, in that realm of my job anyway, it's checking out the new features, looking online, getting inspired by other people's work. That's how you keep your designs fresh. It also helps, the more you do things, the faster you get, the more efficient you become, and those are important. But for myself, currently I'm kind of, I don't want to say retraining, because it's not really retraining. It's adding to my skill set, which is for accessibility. So one of the things that I think a lot of industries are realizing is that accessibility is not just a nice thing to have.
Right.
It's both the law and it's good design.
Right.
So there's more and more demand for making sure that our materials, both online and physical materials, are accessible, both in language and in interactivity.
Right.
So I'm doing some retraining with that, and I've fallen in love with it. I mean, to be quite honest, I would love to see my job move more in that direction,
right.
Just because there's so much work to be done. It's completely new. There's a lot of growth potential there, and it's really making me excited.
Right. So as an educator, one of the things that I'm doing is, so even though I'm leaving academia in a full-time sense, I'm still staying in the part-time sense, because what I love most about my job is that classroom experience. And so I'm going to keep teaching on the side and then do something different full-time. But what I do to kind of keep myself engaged is that the students are changing, and you got to keep changing with the students, and their needs are changing. So like when I first started teaching, the idea of teaching someone how to speak for a video camera would never, like on the internet, never came to mind. It was the 90s, and we weren't thinking like that. And now it's commonplace now.
Yeah.
So there's so many different needs now, and our students are so different, and we're all so different after the pandemic. So we're setting our priorities differently. So I find that constantly asking my students, like I always ask at the end of the semester, like, what's a way I can do this differently? What's a way that you wish I had done? That kind of thing. I'm even now letting my students actually look at my online stuff and say, tell me how to make this better and do this differently. So I try to let my students become the teacher then and like teach me how to do that. And so that I'm always relevant and meeting the needs of the students who are there at that time. So that's how I'm doing that, letting them kind of set my course when it comes to that. Because that's what I'm there for. I'm there to help them. And I'm preparing them for a future that I don't know what it is.
Right.
So, and what they're dreaming it to be. So I need their intervention there and doing more of that. So that's how I'm keeping my skills up to date, is saying, hey, what kind of speeches should I be preparing you for?
And I think that's so important to be open to that, because I think a lot of times as we get older, we tend to kind of lean into what we know and what we feel comfortable with, which in, our case is Gen Xers, we've been doing our jobs for sometimes 20, 30 years.
Right.
But the technologies have changed. The way we communicate has changed. So much of it is different, and we have to be able to flex and make it relevant for the people we're teaching, and our current customers or audience, or depending on our industry.
They're all changing. We have to keep changing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to flip this a little bit. So we talked about, I know that you're not looking to change where you are. I am actively changing. What are some job changes that you would just not consider for yourself right now? Like if someone said, I would offer you this to do that, you just wouldn't be open to it.
I have a really hard time with corporate America. I've worked in nonprofit most of my adult life in one way or another. And the times that I've worked in corporate world, now I work for a nonprofit corporation, so it's not like it's not corporate.
Moments,
it is a corporation, but they have a soul. And I'm not saying that all corporate world is evil, but there's a lot of it out there.
Right.
There's a lot of not ethical things that happen in corporate America.
Right.
And so I'd have to think long and hard, and it would have to be a really, really impactful job for me to be able to take it.
Right.
I couldn't just switch into any job. And, that, as I think I said earlier, values is so important to me that I can't see myself just because of the money.
Right.
To me, that is not an important factor.
Right. And, I saw my dad change jobs a few times, and it was always because of the money. And so he did sales, and he went to whoever would pay him the most and give him the most commission. But he lost a sense of himself in the process, because at the end, he hated where he was. He felt devalued as a human being, because at the end they were just taking his clients and then told him not to come back once he hit 70. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to kind of be used up at the end.
Right.
I also want to do something that's important and not hurting people.
Right.
So I know I can't do sales. I can't sell you a cheeseburger. I can't do any of that. Can't not do that well at all. I do want what I would do to feel like I'm moving people forward in some way, whatever forward direction they want to go. Doing something good. Money's important. Yeah. But money's also not everything. But that's easy to say that when I told my employer that I was leaving, they're like, hey, money's not everything. I'm like, well, hey, if you're having to work 3 jobs like I'm having to do to buy groceries, then money is important. And, hey, 6-figure salary, you can't tell me that. That's not fair. You're making $200,000 telling me that, money's not everything. To a degree it is. If I don't have my basic needs met, that's important. But there is a point that if I get there, that's plenty of money. And I can't go to the store and buy whatever I want, whatever I need it. But I have enough to survive, but I still feel good about the work that I'm doing. That's that good balance for me.
Definitely. And I think that I didn't want to make it sound like I was discounting. You said that very well, because money is important, and you have to have your basic needs met.
Right.
You've got to be able to live comfortably, and that you're not afraid of being evicted, or that you're not going to have enough food for yourself or your kids.
Right.
That you have a general sense of well-being. That money is important. But having those big salaries and all the fancy stuff that goes along with that's where I think sometimes compromises are made with your values and who you are. And that's where I struggle.
Right.
But money is important. We do have to acknowledge we live in a corporate capitalistic society, and I can't go to the grocery store. They're not going to give me, because I'm a nice person, they're not going to give me groceries.
Hey, guess what? I helped someone learn to give a speech. Are you going to give me some, a loaf of bread for that? Come on.
It's like we have to acknowledge, this is a capitalist world we live in, and we have to make enough money to be able to provide for our needs.
But what's also playing in our minds and played in mine immediately was when I retire, my pension and all that. I mean, I am not accumulating money in those hours of that pension, so my pension's going to be not at what I planned to be. That's why I went to the financial advisor. So it's scary. So I worry about once I get to retirement, I don't want my son to think, is she going to have enough money to, cover her butt? Am I going to have to cover for her? Because I have experienced that where I've had a parent not have enough money and had to step in. I don't want to be a burden. I want to be able to cover myself. And I also don't want to work until I die. I've heard people say, well, Gen X, we'll just have to work until we die. I really hope we don't get to that. I hope we can find ways to be okay, because we all need a moment, even if it's not 40 hours, but 10 hours. Like, you at least get to step back a bit. That is important. So that definitely weighs into the job as well, as thinking about that and making sure that you can cover yourself when it comes to midlife. That was my number one thought. And then, can I make my mortgage was the second thought. Yeah.
Well, that's important too.
Yeah, definitely. But besides a paycheck, what do you need from work?
Well, I think mental stimulation. I'm one of those people who needs a lot of things. I mean, mentally, I need a lot of things. I need to be stimulated. I really struggle with repetitive tasks. So, I mean, one of the love-hate relationship with graphic design is typically you're doing a thing and then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again because you send it off for review and they send it back to you and you do it again. But the cool thing about it is I'm constantly doing different projects. And so even though I'm working within a certain brand, I get to play with that brand. I play with those colors. I play with those shapes. So I can make it different each time I do it, a little bit anyway. So that mental stimulation is certainly important. And then I like, the whole idea of having nice people to work with. That's important, that, having a little bit of a community there. But I think one of the things that we as Americans struggle with a little bit is benefits, because I'm going to just talk about the white elephant in the room, because that's a big reason a lot of people stay with their jobs. Because healthcare is so expensive. If I didn't have my benefits package from my job, my life would be a lot more difficult paying those bills out of pocket, because it's subsidized because of my job. And that's important at 57, that I have good healthcare coverage. It's important to me that I can take off so many weeks a year with my vacation package, so I can actually have a little bit of downtime. That I have vision and dental. So
my eyes are going.
That is important to me. And so, like I say, it's not attractive to think that that's the reason that you stay with a job, but it's the reality of
definitely is. In fact, I don't know if I had a chance to tell you this, Sass, but so the place where I'm going has insurance, but I am shopping around as well just to see if I can find something more attractive, because if I don't take their insurance, they'll give me a stipend, which is nice. And one of the places I found had really good insurance and really, no co-pays and whatever. And so I'm like, okay, here's all the things I value. Let's make sure it's here. Here's the name of our doctors. We're not willing to change. We want to stay with our doctors. And then I said, my son and I both are in therapy. So my son's in therapy for a reason. And then I'm in there to, help me kind of think through things. And it's important to us. That mental health is important to us. And his reaction was, oh, you probably shouldn't have told me that, because now that you've had a history of going to therapy, we're probably not going to accept you as a client.
Dang.
He gave me the best rate ever. I was like, this rate's great. Can we make sure behavioral health is in there? And he's like, why? And I told him, and he was just like, because you told me that, because you need that, we're probably not going to accept you. I was floored. Why? we have a mental health crisis going on in this country, and this company is now going to blacklist me because I'm actually doing something actively to improve my mental health.
Yeah. I mean, that it's ridiculous, and it is an incredibly huge crisis because I want to say I'm shocked, but I'm not, because there are too many people in my life who have not experienced that exactly, but can't afford health insurance because they have mental health needs.
Right.
And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I love how the current generation has destigmatized this.
Yes.
I tell my students that all the time. I'm like, I love the fact that you guys talk about it so openly. I love that your generation has made us do that. Thank you. And thank you for the yoga pants too. Love that too. But we need to get the other industries on board and say, now let's applaud the people that want to go and like talk stuff out. Think of the people who have, if they're not talking it out, how they're impacting their physical health. If you have good mental health, it will probably inspire good physical health too. So I don't understand. I think.
And again, I am not a mental health professional.
So we are not.
I do not want to claim anything of that realm, but there's such a stigma about it because the way people with mental struggles, whether it's neurodivergence, whether it's depression, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's whatever kind of mental health struggle you're dealing with, there's a huge spectrum.
Right.
But there's something wrong with you. And the word crazy, we use it a lot in our culture of, it's crazy, it's chaotic, those things have become synonymous. But think about the word crazy and the way we throw it around and what it means, what people are actually saying. You're unstable.
Right.
There's something wrong with you. I think that stigma is just such a big holdover from when people didn't know how to deal with it. When it was a shameful thing when you had someone who had a mental health struggle. I'm thinking about depression, for example. Depression was something that you internalized and you hid. So and so's feeling under the weather, or there's lots of euphemisms for it. Yeah. And they were not encouraged to come out into society or to talk about the struggles that they were having. We have to have those conversations. I mean, that's how we destigmatize it. And your students are a perfect example of how we stop this train that we're on, and we're going to hit a brick wall. We have to start addressing the fact that we are all struggling with some sort of mental something.
Right, yeah. We're all unpacking something in some form.
Exactly.
Just to kind of summarize and bring us back full circle, a lot of us in our 50s and our 60s were not thinking of changing jobs because whether we enjoy it or we're looking at that pension or we're staying because of the benefits. But sometimes we have to change for various reasons, whether it's the industry is dying or changing or you're let go or you have to leave for your own mental health. Yeah. Sometimes you have to make that choice. And there are always options. There's always other things that you can do and look at it. And so if you're faced with that change, start talking about it with people around you. And if there's something if something scary, financial is scaring you, sit down with someone has a background in this and knows what they're talking about and let them give you some comfort. Start writing it like spreadsheets or paper or whatever you have to do. But don't think that you're just stuck because you're of your age. You still have options and you still have things to offer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my gosh. So don't hold yourself back just because you think that you're stuck because of your pension. Because that was me 6 months ago. I thought, well, I'm stuck in this industry because I need to get that pension set. No, I'm telling you, there's other options. So if you're truly unhappy, don't sit in the unhappy. Know that you have other things that you can do.
Get to the other side.
Get to the other side.
So if you haven't followed us on social media, please find us on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, and tell us, what your thoughts are about changing jobs at this point in your life. what's good about that idea and what scares you a little bit about that idea. And thanks for listening, y'all. Thank you for joining us for Free Range Flock. Our goal is to inspire and celebrate who we are, the Generation X kids who grew up and decided to do things their way, with grace, humor, and joy. This has been a production of Sassy Am. If you want to learn more about our podcast, follow our blog, share your positive insights about being a free ranger, or to suggest topics or guests for future episodes, please visit our website at sassayam.com. That's SASSAYAM.com. Keep pushing.